A driverless car to take you anywhere you want to go.
It's just kind of surreal.
It's like something out of a science fiction movie.
See no driver in there.
But on the streets of San Francisco, it is very real and a very viral reality. Some companies will drive, others will stall. How did we get here? Where will the autonomous vehicle industry go? We found out as we explore a driverless tomorrow. Let's take a look at where it all started and where it's going. The year was 2016, and the race was on to build a self-driving car. Automakers, tech companies, and chip makers were all on the autonomous vehicle bandwagon.
They saw this massive addressable market. They said that it would be $1 trillion in the US alone.
Uber was operating self-driving Volvos. Google's self-driving project became Waymo. General Motors bought Cruise for $1 billion. Pony AI was founded and then backed by Toyota. Argo AI was created. Ford and Volkswagen later invested billions. Apple was secretly spending $1 billion a year on its own autonomous car project. It seemed the hype was real. Either build an autonomous car soon or be left at the starting line. Nutonomy was also part of that early hype. Founded in 2013 by MIT research scientist Carl Yanyema, Nutonomy had big ambitions.
How do we develop technology that we can rapidly scale? Our goal is to deploy in many cities worldwide.
Nutonomy grew quickly. In 2016, it launched a limited robotaxi service in Singapore, the first of its kind in the world. Then Delphi, one of the world's largest auto parts suppliers, bought it for $450 million and renamed it Aptiv. Soon it teamed up with Lyft to offer autonomous rides with a safety driver in Las Vegas. Then, a $4 billion windfall. Aptiv formed a joint venture with Hyundai to develop autonomous technologies.
We are Motional, and we're making driverless vehicles a reality.
Aptiv was renamed Motional. The goal was to start charging for rides by 2022. That didn't happen. But Motional ended the year on an inspirational note.
I'm self-driving Ioniq 5-based robotaxi, and you'll be seeing me in late 2023 in Las Vegas.
All things pointed to 2023 as the magical year. We visited Motional in Las Vegas as that deadline was approaching. The company was still testing robotaxis on the Strip with a safety driver on board. But the next step was close: getting rid of the safety driver and charging for rides. Motional was even testing an autonomous vehicle custom-built by Hyundai.
Let me show you our Hyundai Ioniq 5 robotaxi. It's outfitted with more than 30 sensors. And here's a camera, a LiDAR, and a radar. In past vehicle generations, we actually had to buy vehicles, tear them down, rebuild them into autonomous vehicles. These cars come built on Hyundai's production line, tested, calibrated, and shipped to us ready to go.
Hyundai was ready for a huge deployment of robotaxis. Motional was also testing vehicles in Boston, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, and Singapore. But it really embraced Las Vegas.
We selected Vegas as one of the first cities to test in and establish this large technical center.
Las Vegas was creating a smart city. Early on, it installed sensors on the Strip to alert autonomous vehicles about road hazards, traffic signals, and emergency vehicles. But Motional was relying less on the infrastructure and more on its software.
We're a different company today than we were in 2016. The millions of miles that we've collected from driving on public roads, we use it to iterate the software capabilities and features.
When we visited, Motional had 1,400 employees at its technical center in Las Vegas.
Hey, Daniel.
Zebulon Dawson started as a vehicle operator.
Pretty good out there on the Strip, it looks like.
He was promoted to oversee ride-hail operations in Las Vegas.
We're in the command center. This is kind of the brain of the operation right now. We're monitoring the weather, we're looking at the mapping and traffic. The remote vehicle assistance operators are monitoring the vehicles, or they can send remote commands. We can also reroute the cars. How did they go today?
Went great.
You think about taking the driver out and running a driverless robotaxi operation. You need people to do the field support, cleaning and maintenance, the charging of the fleet. There are a lot of different depot-type jobs, technical jobs that have been created.
Candice Gallick joined Motional when it was still active.
When I came in as a driver, we were getting off the ground. They just said, hey, we need people to drive these cars. They drive themselves.
She was promoted to head the team analyzing data collected by the vehicles.
The first thing that we always assess is, what would have happened if we didn't take over? And maybe we discovered that we need a new feature in order to navigate a certain area.
We followed Motional cars as they drove on the Las Vegas Strip during the evening rush hour, and watched as they queued up in long lines to get into the elaborate Mandalay Bay Resort passenger pickup spot.
So I just saw a driverless car, that's mine in Vegas, and I would get into one of these, but just because I'm very curious. So I saw there was still a driver, so I would be intrigued when there's actually leaving the car, just driving. So
We had a pivotal moment where we want to take the driver out of the car. Even though the vehicles have been functioning autonomously, we've always had a vehicle operator behind the wheel. Now the next step is to take the driver out of the vehicle.
But as 2024 began, inflation and high interest rates brought about an economic reckoning. Tech companies had already slashed 262,000 jobs in 2023. The era of big spending was over.
All of a sudden, the industry's funding has dried up. Investors thought that this was going to be a 5-year roadmap, and it's proven to be a lot harder.
The industry had spent more than $160 billion so far developing autonomous vehicle technology. But none of the AV companies were making a profit. Investors' patience was wearing thin.
You have companies saying, wait, you want me to invest $10 billion more? And we're still 5-10 years away from really seeing a profit.
Argo AI was a cautionary tale. The robotaxi company was valued at more than $7 billion in 2020.
Argo AI was a startup backed by Ford and Volkswagen. It collapsed, it ran out of cash, Ford pulled the plug because they basically said that the timeline or horizon to get there on the technology was too distant and it was going to cost too much money.
By 2023, Uber had already sold off its self-driving car unit. Pony AI paused its U.S. operations after an accident in California. Cruise suspended its operations after one of its autonomous vehicles dragged a woman 20 feet. Waymo spent $8 billion to get its robotaxi business going. There were warning signs for Motional too. In December of 2022, it cut 10% of its workforce. Then in January of 2024, as expectations grew, Aptiv slammed on the brakes.
While our Motional joint venture continues to make progress on their technology roadmap, we've decided to no longer allocate capital to Motional and are pursuing alternatives to further reduce our ownership interest.
In an investors' earnings call, Aptiv chairman Kevin Clark explained why the company would stop financing Motional.
The cost related to delivering the tech, principally in and around hardware, really makes it challenging from an adoption standpoint in the mobility on demand market. And as a result, pushes out ultimately the revenue stream and the earnings stream for the business.
While Motional sought new investors, Hyundai pumped another $1 billion into Motional. Then, a few days later, a bombshell announced by Motional CEO Carl Yanyema. Large-scale driverless deployment will not happen overnight. AVs remain a goal for the future, not the present. Motional suspended its robotaxi service. Its new focus? Integrating its driverless technology into consumer vehicles.
The technology has value because you can basically package it as a software, charge the consumer a bit of money for some advanced driver assistance tools.
A robo-taxi here with no driver, you're probably talking $30,000 to $50,000 per vehicle in self-driving equipment alone before you get to the cost of the vehicle. When you look at something like some of the advanced driver assist systems that are on cars being sold today, you look at companies like Mercedes-Benz and they're charging about $15,000.
Motional's restructuring came with a 40% cut in staff. Hundreds of vehicle operators. 3 of the 4 people we interviewed were gone.
So you'll notice this small call button.
Motional's vice president of commercialization remained.
A lot of companies in this space are taking a long view. They are envisioning a future where you have more and more integration into passenger cars and personally owned cars. They're willing to make the sustained investments required to mature the technology to that level. That's healthy for the industry because it's allowing us to make meaningful progress.
There have been loads of companies that have kind of shifted their priorities. Some of this story is financial and some of it is just rethinking the use cases of where autonomous technology is actually going to be able to work in the very real world.
Funding could be one of the things that either holds back or, if you get really pessimistic, dooms this industry. We've seen the likes of Uber and Lyft lose billions of dollars. So when you think about robo-taxis now trying to be a better Uber and Lyft, and they have to own the fleet, which is a very different portion of the model, for them to generate a profit margin, it's unclear when that point arrives.
It is one of Silicon Valley's most unlikely origin stories. 10 years ago, an Australian artist-designer with no tech background got together with a Stanford engineer for an ambitious project. They formed a company named Zoox. Their goal? To create a self-driving vehicle unlike any other. In an attempt to boldly reimagine what mobility in cities could look like. To get there, they took apart a traditional car and redesigned the vehicle they envisioned from scratch. A vehicle that was not designed around a driver, meaning no steering wheel and no gas or brake pedals. Unlike Waymo and Cruise, Zoox does not have its signature vehicle drive around city streets testing and learning as it goes. Instead, Zoox retrofitted SUVs to collect data around San Francisco and Las Vegas. Those vehicles won't ever be deployed as robo-taxis. Their signature vehicle stays mostly hidden from the public eye.
Chris, how are you? Nice to meet you.
But we were able to go inside Zoox at their San Francisco Bay Area facilities to get a closer look at their innovative vehicle.
So this is our vehicle from the ground up.
And I learned that don't call it a car.
Don't call it a car.
Tell me why.
So at the end of the day, it's not a car, right? A car is designed around a human driver. What we've really developed is a platform for our AI to drive and humans to enjoy. And it's a different experience, different product.
Building a vehicle from the ground up has several advantages. Since there is no need to have a seat for a driver or for a steering wheel or pedals, designers were allowed to reimagine how people sit. They decided on a carriage design similar to wagons from the 19th century. Is this a novelty vehicle or the future of driverless technology?
And there's nobody inside. It's amazing.
There is only one way to find out: going for a ride.
Here we go. Okay, of course, safety first. Let's buckle up. Here we go.
The door closes with a swipe of the finger.
Start ride. And there we go. Away we go.
The vehicle took me for a mile-long drive. It is being used regularly by Zoox employees to commute between 2 company offices in Foster City near San Francisco International Airport.
It's really nice and smooth. I feel really comfortable just being here. It's almost like being on a nice bus.
The vehicle reaches speeds of about 35 miles an hour before it has to make a left turn.
Kind of nice not having the steering wheel, a ghost steering wheel, Sometimes it feels kind of freaky to have that steering wheel, and when it does a jerky move, you almost feel like you have to grab onto it. You have that urge, right, to like, oh my God, what are you doing? And kind of grab it. There is no steering wheel, so it feels very comfortable. It just feels like it's meant to be this way.
We eventually pulled into the parking space at the second Zoox location. Here we see the other big difference between the Zoox vehicle and a regular car.
What's unique about this vehicle that no other vehicle has is that I could be facing forward right now, driving in that direction, and suddenly it could also be driving in the opposite direction, and this becomes the forward, so I'm facing forward.
The vehicle is designed to be bi-directional. What could be the front can also be the back.
We are not reversing, actually, we're just moving forward because now that becomes the front of the vehicle.
The exterior safety lights turn either white or red depending on which side is moving forward. That also means the vehicle never has to back up. It never has to make a three-point turn to go in the opposite direction. It just switches which side is the front and moves in that direction. That comes in handy in narrow roads or spaces. The vehicle can just move in the opposite direction without having to turn. It can do one more amazing thing.
How did you get this car in here? And I kind of figured it out because I think you go in through here as any conventional vehicle would, but then you'd have something different.
Not only is the vehicle highly maneuverable, it's a front and rear steer, but we also can remotely operate the vehicle with a handheld control. Our operators can then just steer the car very tightly. It can turn in here, it can crab walk and steer. It has a
crab walk. What is that?
So crab walk is when both the front and rear wheels turn in the same direction.
In a traditional vehicle, the front wheels are the only ones that turn to steer the vehicle. In the Zoox car, all four wheels can move for steering. It allows the vehicle to move sideways into tight spaces. Just thinking about it, it would make parallel parking so much easier. It also gives the vehicle maximum flexibility to drop off passengers.
Better mobility, right? Better ways to get in and out of tight spaces, and so you get picked up and dropped off better than anyone else.
From the beginning, Zoox has sought to change the conversation around robotaxis.
It's not just about your commutes. It's really about changing everything in terms of how we move people, goods, and services eventually.
5 years after its founding, Zoox hired Aisha Evans as its CEO. A year later, it was bought by Amazon for $1.2 billion. The focus has remained the unidirectional vehicle, which it first unveiled in 2020.
Makes you really think about what scenarios you want to take this in, what opportunities you want to not have to drive anymore. Thinking about this vehicle can really change people's lives.
In 2022, Zoox needed a boost to catch up to Waymo and Cruise, which were testing retrofitted vehicles in San Francisco. It hired one of Meta's top engineers to speed up software development.
When autonomous vehicles started coming out, the perception among a lot of people was that, oh, I'm never going to get into that. It's not safe. But you want to change that perception. What do you want to tell people?
At the very human level of, we have like this, primitive brain inside us that just chooses whether to relax or whether to have a fight or flight response. I was new to autonomous vehicles myself, and within a few minutes of taking my first few rides, I just found myself just kind of defaulting to, oh, this is such a normal experience. Like, it's driving like a person would, it's making sensible decisions, it's not doing bizarre things, and I feel safe and like I don't have to pay attention to what's going on around me. That's a huge mental load off you.
From a software standpoint, how are you going to catch up?
I'm really confident in the quality of the work that we've been doing, and especially we've made really interesting architectural improvements to our software that have materially sped up our ability to learn, right? Because remember, these are AI-powered machines, so you have to train them. And our ability to train at a high level of quality and at a high speed has dramatically improved. Having seen the rate of progress, I have full confidence that we will get there.
The Zoox vehicle became the first purpose-built, fully autonomous vehicle to receive federal certification. Then, a historic moment. In 2023, both California and Nevada approved Zoox for use in public roads. The first vehicle ever to get approval that didn't have a steering wheel or was designed to have a driver at all on board.
Will it be disrupted?
I don't know if disruption is really the right way to look at it, right? It's not like we're going to force people into robo-taxis. They should drive in them because they want to be in them and because it's more convenient for them and because owning a car is a pain. I got a parking ticket yesterday. I have insurance to pay for. I have to maintain the thing. I have to wash the bird poop off it. With a robo-taxi, you don't have to do those things. You can still have a car. You just drive it when you want to instead of all the time. So I'm not in the business of disrupting. I'm in the business of adding options that ease people's lives.
So your business model is that you build it from the ground up. I mean, it's exclusively yours, unlike other companies like Waymo and Cruise.
Yeah, absolutely. And we chose to develop a vehicle from the ground up because we knew at the end of the day, once we can self-drive, then what's going to be the differentiator? And the differentiator is going to be the rider experience, right? That's where we can not only leverage the benefits of a ground up vehicle that a car can't achieve for self-driving in terms of allowing self-driving to achieve full autonomy, but also a better rider experience. Because at the end of the day, once you can drive well, that's going to be normal. We're getting ready for our commercial launch in Las Vegas and San Francisco in the not too distant future. And by taking the approach we have, we really want to ensure and show people that it's not just about getting the vehicles out there to have a presence. It's about being on the road in those scenarios, being able to handle that in the way the public expects, and not to kind of learn by doing, but to kind of practice what we want and do before we actually go.
It really kind of speaks to public transportation eventually. I think that's the whole thing. And getting from point A to B. It feels like I'm trusting more and more these driverless vehicles, especially this one, because it just feels like I could trust it.